What's going on, Badger Nation? Welcome to the PPC Den podcast, your home for all things Amazon PPC, Amazon advertising, and Amazon pay-per-click. Today, I am joined by my dear friend, longtime friend of the show from Ocean PPC, Stephen Noch. Stephen, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Michael. It's good to be back, and you're looking pretty good considering the fact that you're under the weather. I think you said you had a fever and everything. So,
ooh, but I got to do it for the fans. I got to come on the show. I got to get it going for all the
Michael
listeners
Erickson,
out there.
Facchin is a show up kind of man. He shows up.
You know, easy way to be good at anything. Say what you're going to do, and then you just go do it.
That's right.
That's it.
Just keep showing up, man.
Also back on the show is this fiddle leaf fig over your left shoulder. Look at that guy, still going strong.
Gerald. I have a brown thumb, probably one of the worst, and this guy has just stuck with it through and thin. What am I trying to say? Through thick and thin, yeah.
Yes.
he stayed with me through thick and thin. Hardly ever water him.
Yes, your number one buddy during quarantine.
Yep. He's still alive.
That's great. I'd be curious to go back to earlier episodes. I mean, this is episode 184.
Yeah.
We've been going for a while, but I think
he first made an appearance around episode 90.
Whoa, that's like 90 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it's so nice to have you back on the show. We have a little bit of an interesting format today. Normally with this show, there's a lot of prep work. Today, all we prepped were 3 very interesting questions to ask each other. And I'm excited to see where these questions go. So without further ado, let's jump to the first question. Alrighty, Stephen. What's exciting you the most right now about Amazon PPC?
You know, Mike, you sent me this question in advance to think about, to hopefully have an answer ready to go. And I did think about it, but I couldn't think of anything because there were too many things that came up, and I just didn't know which one to go with. So, I mean, one thing that and this will speak to a very small, very niche part of your listening audience, but the new bulk operations spreadsheets, I love them, man.
That's it.
Amazon, they did a great thing with those bulk op sheets. They're so much better than the old ones. Several years ago when I was talking all about them, I was complaining about them all the time.
Yeah.
Honestly, my complaints are down now.
So this is super interesting. So number one, I know how much you thought about this question because you were texting me, these are some good questions. But I think out of all of that, bulk files made it to the top of the list. So I think, it's so funny. I always tell people oh yeah, we have a big podcast in the Amazon advertising space. And they're like, well, how many listeners do you get? Do you have over 1 million listeners? I was like, hell no, there's not 1 million Amazon people. So to niche down even further, it's e-commerce. So B2B marketing, e-commerce marketing, Amazon e-commerce marketing, Amazon PPC, and then just go down even further about only the people that bulk files. So I love how you called out that special selection of listeners here, people that have used bulk files. So tell me more. We know that they made some updates, but for you, how has that changed your workflow? What is different now that you now have this?
That's a good question. Overall, it's just made it easier, faster, simpler, less buggy. They patched a lot of things. But
tell me about the bugs. Let's go back in time and think about the bugs.
Well, yeah, we'll go back and not quite the bugs, but the way they would give you the data. Okay, well, yeah, we'll talk about the bugs actually, because there's one thing that I thought was hilarious. That it was back when I was in Austin. One time, I think you were there with me, Mike, but we were staying at the office several hours after closing, trying to get some bulk sheet uploaded. I was trying to increase the bid adjustments for top of search. And I was trying to increase it, I think, by 100% or something. And so I would upload 100%, and the file would register that 100% as 1. And so then when you look at the actual campaign, it would say 1%. The way they were they were converting it to percentage twice, or in the process of it going up. So Yeah, I mean, so that was super annoying. And finally, like, we ended up finding out that you have to, after you type 100%, you have to convert the text cell data to string so that it reads as like a text string. Because if it reads it as a percentage, it's going to upload it as 1. So you have to type 100%, convert it to a text string, and then upload it as a text string. And if you don't do that, it's not going to work. And it's just so annoying.
Awful. Yes. It's mind-blowing it's mind-blowing. It's like one of the largest companies in the world. You're like trying to upload something and it just like spits out 1. And like hidden formatting that like they don't even tell you about.
That was the other thing. Yeah. The help documentation or all the documentation, none of it was right.
Yes.
None of it was right. At least now with the new bulk sheets that they created,
it's pretty good.
The documentation's perfect.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. If you ever have an issue, those documentations are going to help you solve it.
I was talking to someone recently and it was like, oh, how should I do bulk files? And I'm like, honestly, the documentation will tell you everything you need to know.
Because I remember for the PPC Den, we had to create a whole like masterclass on bulk offs because it was necessary. Because if you didn't have, the only way to learn how to do it was trial and error for like 10,000 hours. That's the only way to get good at it. There was no documentation anywhere. There was no blog posts. The Amazon official resources were useless.
Yep.
That was the only way. So part of me is kind of sad because it's like, that felt like a superpower that I had because like nobody knew how to do it. But now it's like, it's pretty accessible. And honestly, it's better. It's better for everybody, but it does like, it definitely like allows the competition to now start to get better at doing the things that we used to do. So
last question I have about the new bulk file updates. How are you using, let's use that to actually segue into the second question here, which is, what is something you do regularly and routinely that you feel like is very important to the optimization process? Would you say it's your usage of bulk files?
I mean, what I do most routinely is just check in on things, right? I mean, it sounds pretty basic, but what I'm primarily looking at is, I mean, for most clients, sales and ROAS, that's pretty much all they care about, or sales and ACoS. Like that's the only thing. If those two figures are good, they're happy. And your work is a lot simpler. You don't have to explain a lot more things. But if either one of those metrics starts struggling, then you've got a lot more of explaining to do, a lot deeper dives and stuff. So I'm just trying to like grow sales and grow the ROAS or decrease the ACoS, or at least stay within the projected margins or goals. And I've become pretty convinced, and I forget if like we've talked about this before on the podcast, but ROAS or ACoS is, to me, just a factor of two things: conversion rate and CPC. Like that's pretty, I mean, or especially because, Mike with AdBadger's bidding algorithm and everything, like, RPC, revenue per click times target ACoS. At the end of the day, like your ROAS is really just your revenue per click divided by your cost per click. That's all it is. It's just revenue per click over cost per click, because it's just revenue over cost. If those clicks cancel each other out. So that being said, I kind of change revenue per click to conversion rate mentally, just in terms of like performance. But conversion rate is just a way to kind of increase your revenue per click. So yeah, it's just conversion rate and CPCs, and those are the things I'm always monitoring. So on a daily basis, on any time frame I'm ever looking at, I never, I always look at sales and ROAS, but then I'm also always looking at conversion rate and CPC. And to me, that's kind of just been like it feels like a silver bullet sometimes. Like, if I can understand, if ROAS is going down, that's because either my CPC is going up or my conversion rate's going down. It's going to be either one. And then once I figure that out, then I know where to look. If it's because CPCs went up and conversion rate stayed flat, okay, cool. Now I have a much better idea of where I need to look at, which keywords are seeing, CPCs rising with competition. It's like it really helps narrow everything down from just a performance perspective. So yeah, those are the things that I'm regularly doing. And then as a long-winded way of kind of answering this question, what am I doing routinely about that? I was working with a friend and we kind of came up with a playbook, like an Amazon playbook, where we kind of gave it 4 scenarios for like where an account's health might be. And it's either your spend is too high, and assuming you have a fixed budget, the client gives you a fixed budget, your spend is high and you're below the ROAS goal, or your spend is low and you're above the ROAS goal, or your spend is high and you're above the ROAS goal, or your spend is low and you're below the ROAS goal. So essentially just like a table, like a matrix of those 4 possible scenarios with whether you're over or under pacing on your spend goal and over or pacing on your ROAS or your revenue goal. And based on those 4 scenarios for an account, we came up with basically 4 different things that you want to do to get it back in line. And so whether that's bid adjustments, whether that's adding keywords or not or adding more negative keywords, those are all the things that we've been kind of like doing, and that's been pretty effective. So
yes, it's great to have those heuristics, because you're absolutely right. Like it's always that, right? Like we're either on course or off course for spend, or on course or off course for ACOS. And then it's just classic, like, are we trying to pare it down and improve ACOS, or are we trying to boost it up and scale?
I have a question for you, Mike.
What's up?
Say you're managing an account and sales are through the roof. ROAS is awesome. Everything's looking fantastic. And it's been like 14 days since you made a bid change or anything. You haven't touched it for like a couple weeks, and you check in and things are going phenomenally. Do you make any changes?
Okay. So this is a great question. So number one, I just need to preface this. I would never go 2 weeks without optimizing bids.
Right. Yeah.
But like in the scenario, let's say let's just say an account like landed on my desk. It was being managed by somebody else, and then it's just like, okay, now it's yours. So like you don't know what's happened to it.
Yeah, that's a better example.
Yeah. But and like everything's going gangbusters, right? I think what you're describing is like a really interesting. Well, let me just answer the question first. Do I do anything? Yes. However, I would definitely follow if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. So like, yeah, I would easily look at like the things that are doing super duper well, and then see if there's any room for scaling those things. So like, oh, this keyword's doing so phenomenally. Can I like boost up the bid? Using the very classic, some kind of variation of like revenue per click is so strong. My target ACOS is way higher than the current ACOS, so I can afford to bid more aggressively. So like, I think I'd look for those opportunities to see if I can scale anywhere. And then I'd also look for new opportunities to like add new stuff to the campaign. So I would guess that, they might not be running, everything sponsored display has to offer, or everything sponsored brands has to offer, or some kind of new conquest type campaign where we're going after things that we haven't done before. So that's what I would assume might be happening there. But yeah, I think that's a great question. Like, what would you do?
Yeah. I would probably agree with you. I kind of want to take like the if it ain't broke, don't fix it approach. But at the same time, like there's always opportunity on the table.
Yeah, so I always think like people talk about campaign structure a lot. Like, oh man, my campaign, I feel like it's coming up a lot more, which is good because a lot of people have bad campaign structure. But a lot of people have campaign structures that are bad, but their results are good. And I think in a scenario like that, they're like, oh, I need to turn off this campaign and build a new one. And I'm like, hold on. The only reason you ever need to like switch up campaign structure is if there's some kind of performance-based reason. Like maybe some of your products or keywords aren't getting impressions. So those should be split out into new things. Maybe you have a keyword that's really a winning keyword that should be broken out into a single keyword campaign. Then like go do that. But like just, changing up a whole bunch of stuff when it doesn't need to, I think that's an amateur move.
So Mike, let me flip those previous questions on you. What are you most excited about right now in the Amazon PPC space? So
the thing that I've been very excited about this over the last like probably 2-3 months, and I'm still very excited. It's still my most exciting favorite thing, which is the search query performance dashboard. Reason being, and in case anybody doesn't know, the search query performance dashboard, it's inside brand analytics. And you can go into it and it'll show you your top 1,000 search terms, and it'll tell you, how many impressions there were in total for this term. For you as well as everybody else. It'll tell you how many clicks you got and how many clicks everybody else got, and it will tell you how many orders you got compared to everybody else. So I think that to have that real first party data directly from Amazon is huge. Like, remember when we did a episode on brand analytics and we thought it was amazing. They were telling us like the positions 1, 2, 3, like who gets the most clicks, who gets the biggest conversion share, but it didn't tell you yours. So if you weren't in the top 3, you know, you'd have to sort of guess. But now you do know yours, and you do know like the sum of everybody else as well. The reason why I think this is so exciting is because it is our first real bridge into, hey, if I bid more or bid less on a keyword, if I get more, or asked another way, if I get more clicks or less clicks for a keyword, does that actually change my relative position in the market? And this is real first party data right from Amazon for that keyword on a per keyword basis. And I think that's amazing. So I think the thing that's coming up a lot, you know, over the last like 12 months, CPCs have gone up a lot, having more and more conversations about like per product based optimization. How much are we spending per product? And I think this opens up the door too to like, how much are we spending per keyword? Like truly how profitable is a single keyword for us? And if I step on the gas on my PPC, like, does that actually yield like a big fat extra result bonus for my overall sales that are coming from this particular keyword? So I really like that first party. Number one, we get first party data. Number two, we get to see how we're doing versus the competition for these searches. And it helps bridge a paid organic gap. And it lets you know like where your sort of aggressiveness level could or should be for any particular keyword. So I think it's awesome.
Does it also show you the conversion rates for those keywords?
I want to say no.
For those search terms?
I don't think so.
It's for some reason, Amazon like doesn't like to include conversion rates a lot of the time. Like, I'm still in shock that in like the main just campaign manager, it doesn't show you the conversion rate for each campaign.
Could get you
or like
got to get you an Ad Badger account.
Like, I know, right? Like you need that, but it's funny because like if you download like a search report or a bulk sheet, like it will show you conversion rates. Or if you're looking at search terms within an ad group within the UI, it'll show you the conversion rate. So it's like, you know, Amazon has the data. They just don't include that column.
And
so
yeah, I mean, of course they do. It's not even a metric that gets tracked. It's like a calculated field. It's like orders and clicks. Like you calculate the field on the like live. By the way, Search Query Performance Dashboard does not have conversion rate. Just looked it up. Yeah, isn't that so weird?
Embarrassing.
I mean, there's a whole
They do have in the I'm not sure if you've seen this yet, Mike, but Amazon has like the advertising account manager dashboard, where you can see like you have like multiple accounts or multiple clients in one view. And in that one, they have purchase rate, but they don't have conversion rate. And purchase rate is orders divided by impressions.
Yeah.
Which is fine for display advertising, but you know, for search, that's a very different thing. Like purchase rate, conversion rate, not the same
I read
thing.
this PPC article like a decade ago from Brad Geddes, who, if nobody knows who Brad Geddes is, he's basically like I don't know, me, but for Google Ads. I'm kidding. But like, he's like a Google Ads OG. He's got a great book, Advanced Google Ads. And I've always wanted to write like an advanced Amazon ads. Anyway, he had this great post one time talking about like, it's all about profit per impression. And I was like, huh? And he described it like your cost per click might vary, but like eventually it will get averaged. So like you can do profit per impression. And if you optimize for that, you get like the highest profitability. And I'm like, huh? Like even to this day, it's like, well, unfortunately that's impossible to do in Amazon. There's like too many leaps that you have to do. And almost like you're like holding a whole bunch of like, I guess dollars. Like imagine you were just holding some dollars without a bag. And like, as you're trying to like take it somewhere to get processed, you're just dropping them all over the place. You can never do it on Amazon.
Yeah. Also, the majority of the impressions on Amazon are like product page placements anyways, with that I personally find the least amount of value in. So we can get impressions there, sure, but I'm usually like trying to focus on winning top of search and everything where there's fewer impressions, right? Like for any given search term, there's max 4 possible top of search impressions. But on a product page, you got like
I'll have
hundreds.
to do an episode. I need to like dig up this. I haven't thought of this post in such a long time. But yeah, profit per impression. It was an interesting thing. So like the profit per impression for product pages is going to be lower than top of search.
Right.
That kind of interesting thing. So yeah, I think the search query performance dashboard is like an amazing glimpse into Amazon's first party data. I can't wait for them to put it into the API. So like you can log it, track it, because it's a difficult to work with report. But like imagine you were able to just track this over time and like see it alongside PPC data. Epic. So like now it's kind of a manual process. But yeah, I think that's the most exciting thing right now.
And then, so the second question you asked me that I'm going to throw back at you, what is something that you regularly or routinely do that you feel is important in the optimization process?
I like this one. I think one thing that is really valuable for people to do is to take your total ACOS value on a routine basis. And again, for those who don't know what total ACOS is, it's basically the ACOS of your entire account divided by the ACOS of all clicks with one order or more. So like a typical example might be, oh, my account has like a 50% ACOS, but if I only look at the clicks that got a conversion, I have a 25% ACOS. So in that case, 50 divided by 25 would be 2. And then you can sort of say like, oh, is that a good number or a bad number? But I think that's an interesting one because if that's going up, what's up?
What
do you call that? I call it the total
KPI.
Oh no, what did I call? I just called it the total ACOS. No. I mean ACOS power ratio. Did I call it total ACOS just now, or the ACOS power ratio?
I mean,
oh man,
I forget what you said, but that's why I was asking again.
I'm gonna like listen back to this episode. It's like gobbledygook. No, it's up all night with a fever.
Yeah, that's super interesting though.
Yes, the ACOS power ratio. You can Google it, and if you Google it, it actually shows up on Google. We have like that spot. It says an ideal range is 1.5 to 2.5. Because I think the reason why I think that's so valuable is like you're never going to have an account where you have clicks that have all converted. Like there's always going to be some amount of non-converting spend. And the question is like, at what level is it too much? When that number creeps really high is when you can start to know. So like if you track that over time, I just think that's such an easy routine. And honestly, it's very connected to what you just mentioned too, with your matrix, where it's like spending too much, spending too little, ACOS too high, ACOS too low. It's almost the same thing because it's a representation of like, how much are we spending on non-converting things? How much are we spending on converting things? And if you're not spending enough on things that are not converting, it could be an indication that like, you're not doing enough research. You're not trying enough things because you'll never have 100% conversion rate, right? Like even if you were to only bid on things with a massive 20% conversion rate, that means 80% of your clicks aren't going to convert. And I think like knowing where the switch off point of like, hey, this is too much, or hey, this is too little, like, hey, I'm not doing enough testing, or I should be doing more testing. Honestly, it's the exact same. It's almost the same gauge as what you were describing with your 4-quadrant matrix. This is just another way to look at almost the same thing of like, are we aggressive enough? Are we not aggressive? So yeah, funny how we came to that same conclusion.
That's great. I like it.
Repeat your matrix again.
So on one column, and I also didn't even realize it was a matrix until on this, this recording.
Remember we took that training, and the trainer was like, everything you do, you got to call it a name.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. This is the account overall health score matrix. TM.
You go.
Copyright.
Yes.
Ad Badger. So you'd have spend here on like this side of the matrix. You'd have overpacing, underpacing based on your budget for the month. And then up here would be your ROAS, and you'd be either above target, under target. And then you essentially come up with like 4 conditions. And then there's something to do for each of those.
Yes.
We'll come back for another episode 200.
Yeah, on the matrix.
Review that matrix.
184.
What episode is this one? Episode 185. Just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. I think getting that pulse check, and like I think it connects back to what you said too, where it's like if you don't plan time to like look holistically at how your account is doing, you're going to be missing the forest through the trees, right? Like if you're so zeroed in and you're like, oh, I have to do this very specific thing all the time, and you're not taking a step back and like looking at your overall spend trend and not just your spend trend in isolation, but like spend relative to your primary goal, which is usually ACoS or ROAS. When you connect those two things, you can get a holistic view, which will then inform the kind of optimization that you do. So that's amazing. Let's switch to question 3. Alrighty, Stephen. So we have the privilege of being able to see many different campaigns, many different accounts, and talk to many different people, hear their business philosophies and all these different things. So we get to learn a lot. The question I have for you is, what do you wish that from talking to all of those clients, what do you wish maybe they all knew that maybe they didn't know, or maybe just one client knew and you're like, man, I wish all my clients knew about this thing. But what do you wish more clients knew about?
I'd probably go with the algorithm, like the ranking algorithm. You got to pay to play, like you got to spend if you want to do better organically. And unfortunately, there's no hard data to back that point, so it always sounds like we're wearing these tinfoil hats and sitting around these conspiracy theory groups on, Facebook advertisers or Facebook Amazon sellers or whatever. But everyone has the same shared experience. And a little side project I was doing earlier this year was I was across multiple accounts taking I would create linear regression models, which I never took a stats class. I just Googled what that was one day and was like, oh, that seems interesting. I should.
How do you define linear regression?
Linear regression, I would say you take maybe here is spend on your x-axis and on your y-axis is sales. And so you just have and maybe you're looking for the past 2 years or something. You're like, I want to see how much I spent a month and how much sales I made a month. And you just have all these different data points. And when you plot them out, do they form a trend? Do all those different dots kind of create a certain shape, or are they all kind of, if they're highly correlated, that your ad spend and your ad revenue are highly correlated, you should see that as your ad spend increases, your ad revenue increases up in a line. And then it's really easy in Excel. That's the only reason why I was doing this, is because I didn't have to do the math. I just dropped the data on a table and just told Excel to create a linear regression chart, puts the line on there and shows me the strength of the correlation, which is on a scale from 0 to 1, 1 being perfectly correlated, 0 being virtually no correlation. And so point being, there's a pretty strong correlation between ad revenue correlating with organic revenue, that the more you make from ads in driving revenue, the better you're going to do on the organic side of things of growing that revenue. And then obviously ad revenue to ad spend is super, super tight correlation, assuming that you're spending properly. The more you spend, the more you're going to make. Assuming, your conversion rates and your CPCs don't change over that period, it's going to be the same. But all that to be said, you see, statistically, the data's there. And so that's what I've been trying to use with clients, especially, and this was interesting, Mike, we were looking at the ad revenue only on the non-branded terms to the total revenue for a certain client. So just the non-branded search term revenue compared to the total revenue. And it had a pretty strong correlation of 0.8 on that scale of 0 to 1. And then we looked at brand defense. So all the revenue being driven from the brand defense ads, the sponsored brand, the sponsored products, all that stuff. The correlation was 0.004.
Okay. Sorry, could you say that again?
And then my watch
Does
thought
she have
I was
any thoughts?
talking to her. No, she just she was like,
also,
I didn't catch
what is that, British? Okay, British Siri.
British
Okay.
Siri. I think so, yeah.
I always go
Maybe
Aussie
South
for my
African.
assistants. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make them sound smarter. Or at least just, I don't know. But point being, if 0 is the lowest you can possibly go for brand defense revenue and, their kind of top line total revenue, the correlation was almost 0.004. Compared to 0.8 on the non-brand side of things, pretty strong correlation between the revenue. If you can drive more revenue in, non-branded search with paid, you're going to find that your organic rankings in non-brand are starting doing better. You can't really improve organic ranking on branded searches, right? You're already fully capped. And so so that was kind of interesting. And that's what I've primarily been trying to push clients on lately because, you know, the A cost is a bit higher on non-brand compared to brand defense. And I'm trying to tell them, listen, the non-brand revenue that you're seeing, or sorry, the brand defense revenue that you're seeing isn't real. You know, like if there's a very high likelihood that it would have happened anyways. Cause like, if you're looking at, just look at your conquesting keywords. Like when you're conquesting a competitor, your click-through rates go down, your conversion rates go down. So if someone's conquesting you, they're going to be having extremely low click-through rates. They're going to be having extremely low conversion rates. And even if someone does click on one of those ads and does, you know, purchase their ad, purchase a product from your competitor, was that even a mutually exclusive sale? Like, does that mean that you actually lost a sale, or maybe they just bought from both of you because you both had something that they wanted, you know? And point being, yeah, brand defense is important. I'm not saying it's not important, but I just
it's not a strong ranking
that,
strategy.
Like, when someone just clicks on, yeah, a lot of that revenue that's being reported on brand defense, I think would have happened regardless. Like, I don't think 100% of those sales would have been lost if you weren't defending your brand. That because there's not going to be 100% click-through rate on competitors and 100% conversion rate on competitors bidding on your terms. So, brand defense is important. You should do it, absolutely. But I'm just trying to help my clients understand the importance of going after non-brand. I'm not even trying to focus on conquesting so much as just really dominating the non-brand category type keyword searches, because that's where you see so much growth in performance and revenue and ROAS and all those things. So
very cool. Like that's how many clients did you do that with?
3. So it wasn't,
but the trend was the same
totally
on all
exhaustive, but yeah, I mean, I did all kinds of linear regression stuff, but yeah, it was, yeah, pretty much around 0.8, and we had data going back like 2-3 years for all of them. So pretty good data sample size. Obviously there's some flaws in that. Correlation does not equate to causation, but there's a lot of other like theoretical stuff that kind of go into support the idea that like, because the more you, I mean, it's again, like the tinfoil hat stuff is like, the better you convert on non-brand, the better your organic rank is going to be, that paid to organic kind of harmonious relationships. Like that's all kind of been like the underlying theory that at least it's day and night between the correlation for branded revenue versus non-branded revenue. One of those seems to be having a pretty strong correlation and an impact on your top line, and the other one does not. So that at least seems pretty clear. And yeah, but I mean, it's not, yeah, it's a fallacy to say correlation is like a guaranteed fact.
I think it'd be so interesting to be able to do that on a per keyword basis as well. The thing I think would be really interesting is like, and I think I wanted to do this for a long time, where it's like, okay, you plot out your sales by search term over the course of a year. So like you have 12 months of this data, and then you have times where you got more paid orders on that search term. Did your organic ranking go up? Or hopefully using the search query performance dashboard, did your overall sales for that keyword go up if your paid sales went up for that keyword? I think that would be really interesting too. Same kind of thing.
All right, Michael Erickson Facchin, what do you wish more clients knew about?
So this is pretty interesting. I think the first thing that comes up for me is like who the right person should be, who they should hire or not hire for their PPC campaigns. I think the thing that comes up for me that I see a lot of clients struggle with is they don't exactly know who to hire and then like what to tell them. And, I think one thing that makes this a lot harder is how many bad marketers there are, or like bad service providers that poison the well. Because I just saw something that was like, get a done for you. Get a done for you agency. So it was like, hey, do you want to start an e-commerce marketing agency? Just pay us and we'll create a marketing agency for you. It's like, we'll hire the salespeople and we'll build your website and we'll like fulfill it and we'll sell it. Like literally that was a real thing. So like, there's no way. This was like a Instagram ad. And I saw someone talking about it. They're like, man, no wonder there's so many low quality agencies out there, because now it can come to a point where you can get someone who knows nothing about the craft and like doesn't really care enough to like grow an agency. And like, you can just like outsource the sales process, outsource the call setters, outsource like the service, outsource everything. And like, you're just sitting there like paying for it. It blows my mind. So like, I think a lot of bad providers poison the well. So I think like being able to discern who's a good provider or a bad provider, I think that would be really helpful. But I think an even more important thing is just like who to hire and when. So like, I think the options are like, they either do it themselves, they bring someone in-house to do it for them as like an in-house marketer, they hire an agency, or they hire a freelancer. And I think like knowing what stage of the company the brand is in order to make the right decision is really valuable. And I'll give like a quick summary of it. It's like, well, if the founder or whoever is running the company, assuming the company is like maybe on the smaller side, but like, I don't think it's bad or wrong for the founder to be in charge of growth marketing and like PPC at their Amazon brand. It's like, if they have a strong passion for it, they really enjoy it, you know, that could be a good source of like enjoyment for them. Like, wow, they actually like doing it, and they're saving money. They don't have to pay for someone to do it. Pretty cool. I think also that person who like really enjoys it may benefit from hiring someone in-house to have somebody really close to them to collaborate with and like tell them basically how they want to get it done. And maybe that in-house person can do a lot of different things for them aside from PPC, so they can get a lot of time back. I think where sometimes people have trouble with is like, they're that person, they like doing it, and then they hire like a freelancer or an agency and expect them to act like an employee, where, you know, I think if somebody's an employee, like you can work on the SOP together with them. But if you're hiring like a freelancer or an agency, it's like you would hope that like you're paying for their SOP based experience. Like you are hoping that you're plugging into a system that's far greater than what you could potentially have yourself. And there's still some collaboration there. But I think like sometimes I'll talk to clients that, you know, will show that are coming to me. They're like, oh man, my last agency was no good. And well, why do you think it not worked? Well, they never did what I told them. I was like, well, okay, what did you tell them? And like they would send me like a 25-page document about exactly what they wanted them to do. And it's like, well, you know, that seems like a tough relationship. So like really knowing how to get the most from like the people around you, I think is like a truly great skill. And I think that would benefit a lot of sellers. Have you ever bumped into stuff like that?
No, really.
You only got
to be honest,
A+ clients.
I have had no. I mean, well, I've had on the side where the client brings on someone else in house who has a little bit of experience in PPC, and so they just start dictating the strategy. And then that's a very difficult situation, especially when it's like, you know, a big ticket client, because it's like, what they're telling you to do, like, you disagree with. And unfortunately, in the PPC space, you know, there's a lot of different schools of thought. You know, there's no
the two different schools are the right way and the wrong way.
You know, exactly, yeah. You know, I mean, like, so, and I'd actually texted you about this, Mike, like the difference between, like, you know, I've always been a big proponent of single product ad groups. But, you know, this one client in particular wanted to do single product campaigns. Where I did not see that would lead to any difference in performance, unless if we wanted to budget individually for each individual product, this account of which has like almost 2,000 products. So unless we wanted to find different budgets for every individual product, you know, I didn't really see that being beneficial, or having different placements for top of search for every individual product. I just didn't see that being a very beneficial like structure for the whole account. And it was just going to make everything a bit more cumbersome and difficult to navigate. Slower to quickly report or quickly diagnose problems, all those things. But, you know, at the same time, the client's kind of the boss. So, you know, we pushed back a little bit, try to present our POV and defend, you know, our tactics that we've done for the client for the past year, that have done very well for the client over the past year, grown their sales from, I mean, they did like 230 million last year, and this year they were seeing 30% year-over-year growth already. And then within the past couple months, client brought on this new guy in-house who's now wanting us to like change the whole strategy and everything. We're like, yeah. wasn't a big fan of that, but we're doing it, because at the end of the day, like, they signed the paycheck.
I always think like, in a perfect world, like the best idea always wins, right? And like, unfortunately, it's like, that's not the way the world works. But yeah,
and we were fine for just to kind of conclude to resolve that story. We were fine doing that because we didn't think that was going to be bad for performance. Like, it's not going to hurt performance to do that. So we are doing it. I don't think it's helped it.
Right. Just sometimes, like, I sometimes feel like something might be read somewhere. And like, that's another thing too. Like, this is another thing I wish more people knew. It's like, it's since like day one on this podcast, I've always tried to like never say like, this is the way that you absolutely must do it every single time. Because it's like, there's a lot of nuance of like, the kind of company that it is. Maybe it has a ton of branded traffic. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's a novel product that people have never heard of before, or maybe it's a commodity. Maybe it's launched, their brand new company in the first 6 months, first year, and maybe they're like a 5-year-old company. So like just those factors aren't even PPC factors. And like, then you get into maybe they have 5 SKUs, or maybe they have 500 or 5,000 or 50,000. We've worked on accounts with tens of thousands of SKUs. And it's like all of those considerations would change, any sort of hard and fast box that you would need to live in. So like that's a big one too, like having the mental flexibility. And I think a reason why a lot of people don't have that is because like, it's very tempting to think that there's just like one ultimate way that every single thing should be done every single time. And it's like, well, you really have to make a lot of like these sort of gray area decisions. It's tough. It's tricky. Yes.
Yep.
So Stephen, we've done it. 3, see, look at that. That was super interesting. 3 interesting questions. Lots of good, interesting, insightful Amazon ads talk.
It's always interesting talking with you, Mike.
At you. So let the good people know out there in Badger Nation where they can find you. Plug yourself. Your LinkedIn.
Up on LinkedIn. Pro. Yeah, my LinkedIn is not updated, but that's probably just the best way to find me. What would Gary Vaynerchuk say about you not having an updated LinkedIn? Oh, he'd be like,
yes, exactly.
What are you doing, bro?
Just like, bro, you need to focus on one thing, quantity. Quality will come later. I saw.
No, his voice is squeakier.
There's really good Gary Vaynerchuk impersonators out there. Good stuff.
I know, I love it. Yeah, LinkedIn, Stephen Noch, Stephen with a PH.
As Noch, in like
Noch.
Stephen the Noch Ness monster. Anyone ever call you that?
That's right.
Do you wish that more people did?
No, that was the first.
Well, right on.
I do. Yeah. If you send me a LinkedIn message with calling me the Noch Ness monster, I will 100% respond.
Well, sir, it's always a privilege.
To get my attention.
Can't wait. Thanks so much for coming back on the show. Can't wait to have you on again in a couple of months because it's always a privilege checking in, checking up, and resyncing. Stephen, have a good one. And for everyone else, I'll see you next time here on the PPC Den podcast.